Hello, my name is Dr. Jeff Aberle, and in this video we're going to cover the Lumix Q laser from Laser Biotech International. And I wanted to do a little hands-on demonstration of the interface of the laser so people understand how easy this thing is to use, because it's really simple. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover some of the values up here and cover what some of the buttons do, so you have a good understanding of how this laser, how you actually use this laser. Because people hear these values and they'll see the specs of the machine, but when it comes down to working it, it's just much better to see it actually in real time here. So right now I have it set at the highest peak power that the machine can go to, and I'm just going to start there and start explaining things. So what this laser can do, the highest peak power it can run is 132,000 watts of peak pulse power. Each pulse at this setting is running for 7 nanoseconds, so it's a very narrow pulse with a pulse energy of 922 microjoules. Don't worry, you don't need to know any of this, just showing you. And then the average power of 9.2 watts. Okay. Peak pulse power determines your depth. Average power determines how many photons are coming out of the machine. This actually does the work that you want to do to treat muscles. This is what helps control the effect on the cytochrome C oxidase enzymes in the mitochondria. This is a very important number. This determines how deep these photons can go. So you got to look at both numbers, and they're kind of pre-programmed in the machine here, so you don't really have to control much of this. The easiest thing to control, believe it or not, is actually the frequency. So it has a peak pulse power of 132,000 watts. Each pulse is on for 7 nanoseconds. 7 nanoseconds is a little hard to wrap your head around. What that is I'll say it in decimal form. 7 nanoseconds is 0.0000007 seconds. Very fast pulses. Each pulse delivers 922 microjoules of energy. And when you take that times 10,000 pulses every second, you get 9.2 watts of power going into the tissues. Okay? I got to be very careful explaining power and energy. And every once in a while I get them mixed up as well. So if you're getting them mixed up, don't worry about it. But so the peak pulse power and the average power are the two things you're mostly interested in. These get handled automatically by the machine. Now, how you change this is the simplest way is just to change the frequency. And this is the button that I'm usually playing with. I don't usually even touch these, but I'm going to show you what they do. So if I change the frequency, what it'll do is all these other values will change with it. So I'm going to increase the frequency. And what you'll notice is the peak pulse power coming down and the average power going up. Okay? And so that's how you control this machine. Now, what am I doing here? Well, I'm dropping my depth that I can get into the tissues, but I am getting more average power. Now, why is that important? Well, this is, like I said before, average power. This is what actually does the work that you're trying to do. If the tissues you're trying to get to are very superficial, then get this higher and this lower. If the tissues you're trying to get to are deeper, then turn this up and turn this down. But there is a trade-off, because what you're doing, as you raise the peak power, you're spreading these out through more tissue because you're getting in further. And then you'd have to leave it there longer to try to get the effect that you're looking for. So there is advantage to getting more average power out of the machine and less peak power. Now, I find 72 kilowatts gets really deep. I like this setting. In fact, sometimes I'll go to a little higher here, 16.7. And I like to do this because at 30 kilohertz, you get some really nice effects with stem cells. So 30 kilohertz is a great setting to run at. 40 kilohertz is a great one too. Nerves supposedly like 40 kilohertz quite a bit. But I typically run around here. So I get good depth and good average power out of the machine. And then if I really got to get low, I take it down to that 132, kilowatt, 9.2 average power if I have to get deep. So I hope that makes sense. Now the machine, once you get to 20 kilohertz, then it bumps up by 10 kilohertz increments. So you already saw that from the 20 to the 30, but then it goes to 40, and you can see what the parameters are doing here. So again, you don't have to know any of this. It's just helpful to teach people about this so that you end up buying something, spending your hard-earned money on a laser that's actually going to do what you want it to do, right? Because these things are not cheap. I mean, none of these lasers out there are inexpensive. So you always want to get the best bang for your buck, is a common phrase. But at 100 kilohertz here, this is as high a frequency as this will go. Now you have 6,000 watts of peak power, but you're putting out an average power of 20.3 watts. And this is the highest average power this machine can put out, which is plenty. Now this, you got to relate this to the machines, that most of the lasers that are out there. They don't tell you the average power. They are telling you their peak power. So let's say you have a laser out there with a peak power of 45 watts. Well, you got to compare that to 6,000 to make it a fair comparison. But then those machines are usually running at what's called a 50% duty cycle, which means they're on as long as they are off. So their peak power, you cut that in half, and that's your average power. So if you have a 45 watt laser, you cut that in half, that's 22.5 watts average power. So you can tell that that's very similar to this, right? It's off by a few watts. But here I'm getting 20.3 watts average, yet I'm getting 6,000 watts worth of depth, whatever that is. But it's definitely more than 45 watts, right? And that's kind of the big thing here. It's not that hard to use. It's very, very simple. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this down and show you what some of these other numbers do. Okay, so let's just take it down to the 50 kilohertz, and I want to show you what duty cycle is. So let's just say, yeah, I only want 19,000 watts worth of depth, but this average power is just too high for me. I don't want that much. So what you can do is you can play with the duty cycle. Now all this does is it drops the average power down by 10% increments. So if I take this from 100 down to 90, you'll see this drop down 1.9 watts. Okay. And if I do it again, it'll drop down another 1.9 watts, and then another 1.9 watts. So you can go all the way down to 10% duty cycle, and there you go. That's 10% of what the original 19 watts was. So I hope that makes sense. It's real easy. And then the other thing, now you'll notice that does not change the peak power. You notice that? Doesn't change it at all. Average power will adjust both of those. So I'll just show you that real quick. So if I lower this, you'll see both the average power and the peak power come down. Okay, so you see that? So you can take that down to lower the average power as well, and you can combine it with a duty cycle to do whatever you want. I leave both these values the same pretty much all the time. And so there's that. Now duty cycle does work a little differently on this than you would think. So the duty cycle, I liken it actually to how a microwave oven works. Now microwave ovens, if you ever set them to 50%, they don't call it duty cycle there, but 50% power, right? That's what they refer to it as in a microwave. A microwave is either on or off. You can't turn down the power level. So what they do is they just have it on for a few seconds, and then they have it off for a few seconds. Then they turn it back on again for a few seconds. Then they turn it off. And you can hear the machine kicking on and off. The fan's always running on a microwave, but you can hear the actual microwave part of it turn on. It's a different type of hum. So this kind of works the same way. So if you do actually have it at a 50% duty cycle, what it'll do is it'll actually be all its normal parameters for a second, and then off for a second, and then on normal parameters for a second, then off for a second. And so it's a 2-second cycle in there, and then that center point is what's modified between the on and the off. And that's how this duty cycle is figured out. So it kind of works like the microwave oven does. It does not change the pulse duration at all. This is confusing to me at the very beginning. I had to ask for clarification. All I knew was that the average power came down, and that was good, but inquiry minds want to know, and I wanted to know. So I'm passing it along to you if you have any interest in that, because sometimes it's just one little thing that people don't understand, that then they don't get a machine, and it's like, well, just ask the question. So I'm trying to see if there's any other things out there that you'd want to know. I'm trying to foresee that. Now the other thing that happens too is this is set for 10 minutes 0 seconds. So once I start the machine, it'll actually start counting down. And this is the total amount of energy that will be delivered with these parameters for the 10 minutes. So what'll happen is this will decrease and this will increase. The total supplied energy at the end of 10 minutes will be 11.4 kilojoules. And then if you restart the machine without going back out of the program and back in, it'll just keep adding to that. So if you ran it for 20 minutes, then totally this would show up as 22.8 at the end of the 20 minutes. Now you'd have to stop and restart the machine with a foot pedal again. But it's very easy to use. These are pre-programmed settings, and so you put your protocols in there and just have a few of them, however many you want. Generally, you need 2, 3, 4 of them, and there's not that much you need to change. So when I'm in here, these are the things I can play with, and like I say, frequency is really all I do. It's all I'm playing around with. And there are times I'm trying to stimulate macrophages to go back into like an injury status, and that you want like 60 kilohertz or above. So then I go to this setting, or I go all the way to 100, and that gets into stuff I'm not going to cover here. But anyway, so sometimes I do use 100,000 pulses per second, and if there's a ligament that's damaged, for example, and you want to have the body repair that and bring it back and tighten it up again, you can cause that to happen by working 60 kilohertz or above. Like I say, I don't want to get into that, but it is a very fascinating concept with tissue regeneration that you can do with lasers. So if you want more information about that, give the company a call or give me a call. So like I say, yeah, this is usually kind of in the range I work at. Oops, right around here. What's happening here? I'm not moving my hand far enough. There we go. This is around the range I like to work at. I like to work at 30 kilohertz so I can get stem cell activation, and I get a really nice average power out of the machine. So I hope that clears things up for you. If you have any questions about this machine, give me a call by all means, or call the company. And you can find my information just by looking me up. I'm a chiropractor in Madison, Wisconsin. My website's aberlechiropractic.com. I'll put that up on the screen. And you can give me a call and we can hash out laser stuff, because I've gone through 6 different laser systems in my career so far here. I don't mind spending money on lasers, and when I find something better, I buy it and then I sell the old stuff. So I've gotten rid of a whole bunch of machines, and I've got this laser, and I've got a predecessor to it called the Lumix 110, and that's a 110 watt super pulse laser, and that's a great laser as well. That also has 2 other lasers in it that are continuous wave. So it combines super pulse and 2 continuous wave lasers to give you a really nice machine that's got a smaller footprint than this too. I'll do a video on that laser as well, and that one's very nice and portable as well. Not that this one isn't portable, it's just that one's super, super portable, and there's advantages to everything. It just depends on what you're using it for, right? So if you're looking for a machine that gets really nice depth with high average powers that are very safe and comfortable, this machine is incredible. I've never seen anything like it. It's in a class all of its own, and it's called a super pulse laser. And if you want more information on how this works, watch my videos on the waveforms, because I go into show the waveforms, how this type of a laser compares to continuous wave lasers. And I know they have similar screens, but they work totally different under the hood. So you got to see how that works and see how that works. So before you spend any money on a laser, check out those videos and learn about super pulse technology, or learn about what you're going to be getting, which is a lot of people, like I say, go with continuous wave lasers. So learn about it, and you can make a more informed decision. So again, my name is Dr. Jeff Aberle, chiropractor out of Madison, Wisconsin. Feel free to give me a call anytime. Thank you very much, and have a good day.